The transport ship descended through the dark clouds of Apex Prime, carrying Captain Gina Hahn toward what would either make or destroy her career. She pressed her hand against the cold window, watching the massive station grow larger below. Somewhere down there, dozens of alien commanders were waiting to meet her. None of them wanted her there. Gina was young by military standards, only 32 years old. Her uniform was crisp and new, recently issued by the Galactic Defense Coalition. She wore her black hair pulled back tight, and her face showed no emotion. Inside, though, her stomach twisted with nerves. This was the biggest assignment of her life, and she knew half the Coalition wanted her to fail. The station was enormous, a floating city of metal and lights hanging in space. Ships from 100 different worlds docked at its arms. The Coalition brought together dozens of alien species, all united against a common enemy. That enemy was the Vurak Empire, a race of brutal warriors who had crushed 12 star systems in just 1 year. They were coming closer to Coalition space every day, and someone had to stop them. That someone, apparently, was Gina. The transport landed with a soft thud. Gina grabbed her bag and walked down the ramp into the station. The air smelled strange. A mix of different atmospheres blended together. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the corridors. Some walked on 2 legs like humans. Others floated or crawled or moved in ways that hurt to look at. A young man in a Coalition uniform waited for her at the gate. He saluted sharply. "Captain Hahn, I'm Lieutenant Mingho Park. I'll be your second in command." Gina returned the salute and allowed herself a small smile. Minho was human, like her, and she felt grateful to see a familiar face. "Good to meet you, Lieutenant. How bad is it?" Minho's expression darkened. "Pretty bad, ma'am. The Coalition Council is in emergency session right now. They're arguing about whether to keep you in command or replace you before the operation even starts." "I see." Gina had expected this, but it still stung. "Let's not keep them waiting, then." They walked through the station together, heading toward the command center. Along the way, Minho briefed her on the situation. The Vurak fleet was moving toward a mining colony called Kepler 442. Intelligence predicted they would attack within 48 hours. Gina's job was to hold the colony for 72 hours until reinforcements could arrive. Her forces included ships and soldiers from 6 different species. None of them had ever worked together before. "They don't think humans belong in command positions," Minho said quietly. "Most aliens see us as weak. Too small, too fragile. They can't understand why Earth sent you instead of requesting an experienced alien commander." Gina nodded. She had heard this before. Humanity was new to the galactic stage, only 2 centuries since first contact. Most alien species had been traveling the stars for thousands of years. They saw humans as children playing at War Dot. The command center doors opened with a hiss. Inside, the Coalition Council waited around a large circular table. The room fell silent as Gina entered. She could feel their eyes on her, judging her, measuring her. Finding her wanting dot at the head of the table sat Commander Thalos, a being made of living crystal that caught and reflected the light. His voice sounded like glass chimes. "Captain Hahn, we were just discussing your appointment." "So I heard, Commander." Gina took her place at the table, standing straight despite being the shortest person in the room. "I'm ready to begin the briefing." A massive reptilian creature slammed his clawed hand on the table. "This is madness. I am General Vraxis. I have fought in 300 battles across 4 centuries of service. And they send us this. This child? This human?" He leaned forward, his yellow eyes fixed on Gina. "No offense to your species, Captain, but you are not ready for this. You have no experience with large-scale operations. Your people have barely left your home system. With respect, General, you're wrong. Gina pulled out a data tablet and projected holographic images above the table. I've reviewed the Verrek battle records. Every engagement for the past year. They follow predictable patterns. They rely on overwhelming force and frontal attacks. They assume their enemies will respond with standard defensive tactics. Commander Thelus's crystalline form shifted colors. And you propose something different? I propose we don't give them the fight they expect. Gina manipulated the hologram, showing the layout of Kepler 442. A mining colony has industrial infrastructure we can weaponize. Ore refineries, gravity wells, drilling platforms. If we abandon the standard defensive positions and instead abandon our positions? Vraxis roared. You want us to retreat before the battle even begins? This is cowardice. It's strategy. Gina's voice remained calm, but steel entered her tone. The Verrek will expect us to defend the main facilities. When we pull back, they'll think they've already won. They'll rush in without proper reconnaissance. That's when we spring the trap. The council erupted in arguments. Some species agreed with Vraxis. Others seemed intrigued by Gina's approach. Commander Thalos raised a crystalline hand for silence. The council will vote, he announced. Those in favor of keeping Captain Han in command? 4 hands raised. Then 5. Gina held her breath. Those in favor of replacing her with General Vraxis? 5 hands. The room was split exactly down the middle. Commander Thylos was the deciding vote. He studied Gina for a long moment, his crystalline eyes unreadable. I will give Captain Han one chance. If she can hold Kepler 442 for 72 hours, she keeps her command. If she fails ... double quotes, he didn't need to finish the sentence. Understood. Gina kept her voice steady. I won't fail. The meeting ended shortly after. As the council members filed out, General Vraxis stopped beside Gina. He towered over her, easily 3 times her size. I have fought beside many species, human. I have seen warriors who could tear apart steel with their bare hands. I have seen species who can survive in the vacuum of space. Your kind has none of these advantages. You are soft and weak. I will follow your orders, but I do not believe in you. He left before Gina could respond. Minho stepped up beside her, anger on his face. That was out of line, ma'am. No, Lieutenant. That was honest. Gina looked at the holographic display of Kepler 442, already running calculations in her mind. He thinks I'm weak because he's never seen what humans can do when we have no other choice. He's never fought the kind of wars we fought on Earth. Should we tell them? About your record? Not yet. They wouldn't believe it anyway. Gina started gathering her equipment. Besides, I'd rather show them. Actions speak louder than words. They had 36 hours to reach Kepler 442 and prepare the defenses. 36 hours before the Varrock fleet arrived. 36 hours before Gina would prove to the galaxy that humans deserved their place among the stars, or die trying. The colony of Kepler 442 sat on a rocky moon circling a gas giant. From space, it looked small and unimportant. Just a collection of mining facilities and habitat domes scattered across Greystone. But to the Coalition, it was crucial. The mines produced rare metals needed for ship construction. Losing this colony would cripple their ability to build new vessels. Gina stood in the command center, a reinforced bunker deep beneath the main habitat. Holographic displays surrounded her, showing the positions of her forces. Ships orbited above. Ground troops dug into defensive positions around key facilities. Or at least, that's what they were supposed to be doing. Pull back Alpha Company, Gina ordered. Redeploy them to Sector 7. Lieutenant Minho relayed the command. Through the COM system, Gina heard confusion and anger from the alien troops. Sector 7 was an abandoned mining pit with no strategic value. Alpha Company had been defending the main power generator, one of the colony's most important structures. Commander Thalos materialized beside her, his crystalline form shimmering with agitation. "Captain, I must protest. You're leaving our primary targets undefended. The Varrock will destroy them within minutes of landing." "That's the idea." Gina pulled up another display, showing the colony's industrial equipment. "The power generator has been rigged to overload on command. Same with the ore refineries in Sectors 2, 4, and 6. When the Varrock move in to capture them, we detonate." "You're going to destroy our home infrastructure?" General Vraxis's voice crackled over the comm, filled with disbelief. "This is insanity. This is war." Gina's fingers danced across the controls, adjusting troop positions. "The equipment can be replaced. Lives can't. Trust me, General, I don't." Vraxis cut the connection. Gina took a deep breath. She knew how this looked. To experienced military commanders, her strategy seemed suicidal. But they didn't understand. They'd never fought the kind of desperate battles she had. They'd never had to win with nothing but creativity and determination. Min-Ho touched her shoulder. "Incoming. Varrock fleet detected at the edge of the system. Here we go." Gina pulled up the tactical display. Red dots appeared on the screen, dozens of them. The Varrock ships moved in a tight formation, exactly as she'd predicted. "All forces, battle stations. Remember your assignments. No one moves until I give the word." The next hour crawled by. The Varrock fleet approached slowly, scanning for defenses and traps. Gina forced herself to wait. Patience was key. If she sprung the trap too early, they'd adapt. Too late, and they'd overrun her positions. Through the view screen, she watched the alien ships grow larger. They were ugly vessels, all sharp angles and crude construction. Built for war, nothing else. Landing craft detached from the main fleet and descended toward the colony. "They're targeting the power generator," Min-Ho reported, "and the main refinery complex." "Good. Let them land." Gina gripped the edge of her command console. Every instinct screamed at her to act, to defend, to fight. But she held still. The Varrock landing craft touched down. Hatches opened and alien soldiers poured out. They were large creatures, covered in thick armor plating. Each one carried weapons that could punch through concrete. They moved with confidence, expecting minimal resistance. General Vraxis's voice filled the comm. "Captain, they're at the generator. We must act now." "Hold." Gina watched the tactical display. More Varrock troops landed. More ships descended. They were committing their forces, spreading out to capture the apparently defenseless facilities. "Just a little more?" "Captain." Commander Thales's voice was urgent. "They're inside the main refinery. If we wait any longer, now." Gina pressed the detonation command. The power generator exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The blast wave caught 3 landing craft and sent them tumbling across the rocky ground. Varrock soldiers who'd been moving to secure the building simply vanished in the explosion. The refineries went next. Gina had spent hours calculating the exact timing, ensuring each explosion would trigger at the perfect moment. Fire and debris rained down across the colony. The Varrock forces, caught completely off guard, scrambled for cover. "All units attack." Gina's voice rang out across every channel. "Hit them now while they're confused." Her forces emerged from hiding. The aliens she commanded moved with deadly precision, having reluctantly followed her bizarre positioning orders. Now they understood why. The Varrock were trapped in kill zones, pinned down by crossfire from positions they hadn't even known existed out in orbit. Coalition ships struck at the Varrock fleet. Gina had positioned them near the asteroid field, using the rocks as cover. Now they swarmed out, hitting the enemy ships from unexpected angles. The battle raged for hours. Gina barely blinked, her attention locked on the tactical displays. She issued orders with calm precision, adjusting her strategy as the situation developed. When the Varrock tried to regroup, she had mining drones crash into their formations. When they attempted to retreat to orbit, gravity wells pulled their ships off course into prepared firing positions. She'd weaponized the entire colony. Every piece of industrial equipment became a tool of war. Drilling platforms became kinetic bombardment weapons. Ore carriers became missiles. Even the mining tunnels themselves became traps, rigged to collapse on advancing enemy troops. "Captain, they're retreating." Minho couldn't hide his excitement. "The Varrock fleet is breaking off. Don't let them regroup. Pursuit Formation Delta." Gina pulled up casualty reports. Her forces had taken damage, but far less than expected. The Varrock, on the other hand, had lost nearly 40% of their landing force and 7 ships. Commander Thalos appeared beside her, his crystalline form pulsing with what might have been respect. "Captain Hahn, I apologize. Your strategy was brilliant. I should have trusted you. Save the apologies until we've won." Gina highlighted new positions on the map. "They'll be back, probably within 12 hours. And now they know our tactics. We need to prepare new surprises." General Vraxis's face appeared on the main screen. The reptilian warrior looked different somehow, less dismissive. "Captain, my forces are ready for redeployment. What are your orders?" It was the first time he'd asked instead of argued. Gina allowed herself a small smile. "General, I need your troops in sectors 9 through 12. We're going to set up a false command center. When the Varrock return, they'll waste resources attacking a decoy while we hit them from the flanks." Vraxis nodded slowly. "Clever, very clever. This is not how we fight wars in the Coalition, Captain. Our tactics rely on strength and honor. With respect, General, I fight to win. Honor doesn't matter if you're dead." Gina turned back to her displays. "We have 11 hours to prepare. Let's get to work." The command center buzzed with activity as her forces reorganized. Gina moved from station to station, answering questions and adjusting plans. She could feel the change in the room. The aliens no longer looked at her with doubt. They looked at her with cautious respect. Minho brought her a cup of coffee, one of the few Earth luxuries available on the colony. "You did it, Nam. They're believers now. One battle doesn't win a war, Lieutenant." Gina took the coffee gratefully. "The Varrock have lost before. What matters is whether we can keep winning." She stared at the tactical display, her mind already working on the next phase. The Varrock would adapt. They'd come harder and faster. And she'd need to be ready with something even more unexpected. Outside the command center, she heard alien soldiers talking. Their words filtered through the translator systems, and she caught fragments of conversation. They were discussing the battle, analyzing her tactics, expressing surprise at human ingenuity. Gina closed her eyes for a moment, allowing herself to feel a small measure of satisfaction. She'd proven she belonged here. She'd shown them that humans could lead, could win, could stand equal among the stars. But the real test was still coming. The Varrock wouldn't make the same mistakes twice. And Gina knew from hard experience that the second battle was always harder than the first. 59 hours to hold. 59 more hours before reinforcements arrived. She could do this. She had to do this, because the entire galaxy was watching. The brief calm after the first battle didn't last long. Gina knew it wouldn't. The Varrock were regrouping somewhere beyond sensor range, planning their next attack. She used the time to rotate her troops, get hot meals distributed, and repair damaged equipment. Every minute of rest mattered. She was in the command center, reviewing supply levels when General Vraxis entered. The massive reptilian moved with surprising quiet for his size. Behind him came Commander Thalos and 3 other Coalition officers representing different species. They all wore serious expressions. "Captain Han, we need to talk." Vraxis settled his bulk into a reinforced chair. "Your tactics in the last engagement were ... unconventional. Effective, yes, but unlike anything in Coalition military doctrine. I've been a soldier for 4 centuries, and I've never seen anyone fight like you do." Gina set down her tablet. She'd been expecting this conversation. "What's your question, General? How does a human with only 10 years of service know more about warfare than officers with centuries of experience?" Commander Thalos moved closer, his crystalline form reflecting the lights of the command displays. "We've reviewed your official record. It shows standard training, a few minor skirmishes, nothing that would explain your tactical genius. My official record is incomplete." Gina leaned back in her chair. "It only shows my time with the Coalition. It doesn't include my service before humanity joined." "Before?" Vraxis leaned forward. "What was there before? Your species had just developed faster than light travel. You were exploring your local systems. There were no wars." Gina laughed, but there was no humor in it. "General, humanity has been at war with itself since we learned to make tools from stone. Joining the Coalition didn't change that overnight." She pulled up a holographic display showing Earth and its surrounding systems. "For 50 years after we developed FTL travel, Earth's government had no real authority beyond the homeworld. Different megacorporations claimed different systems, different asteroids, different moons. They went to war over resources, over territory, over nothing more than pride sometimes. The alien officers exchanged glances. This wasn't in any of their briefings about humanity. I fought in the Titan conflict," Gina continued. Her voice remained steady, but her eyes looked distant. 5 megacorporations fighting over Saturn's moons. I was 17 years old when I enlisted with the Meridian Group. I thought it would be adventure. It was hell. She manipulated the display, showing images of broken habitats and shattered ships. We didn't have the luxury of Coalition resources. No endless supplies, no reinforcements from a dozen different worlds. We fought with whatever we could scavenge. We turned mining equipment into weapons because we couldn't afford real ones. We learned to win battles where we were outnumbered 5-1 because losing meant everyone died." Minho appeared in the doorway, carrying a data chip. "Ma'am, I brought the files you requested." "Thank you, Lieutenant." Gina took the chip and inserted it into the main console. "What I'm about to show you is classified. Earth's government doesn't like to talk about this period. It makes us look barbaric, they say uncivilized." The holographic display filled with combat footage. The alien officers watched in silence as scenes of brutal warfare unfolded before them. Ships fighting at point-blank range. Soldiers in improvised armor boarding enemy stations through breaches blown by explosives. Desperate last stands in cramped corridors where tactics meant everything because firepower meant nothing. "This is the Battle of Enceladus Station," Gina narrated. "I was a lieutenant then, commanding 200 defenders against a force of 5,000 attackers. The station had 30,000 civilian workers who couldn't evacuate. We had to hold for 6 months until relief arrived." The footage showed defenders using zero gravity to their advantage, turning maintenance tunnels into kill zones, rigging entire sections of the station to explosively decompress when enemies entered. It showed creativity born of desperation, tactics that would never appear in any military manual because they were too dangerous, too risky, too insane. "How did you survive?" Commander Thelos's voice was quieter than usual. "Barely." Gina touched a scar on her left arm, hidden beneath her uniform. "I learned that you can't fight by the rules when your enemy has more ships, more soldiers, more everything. You fight with your brain. You use the environment. You make your enemy think they're winning, right up until the moment they lose. General Vraxis studied the combat footage with new eyes. This explains your tactics here. You weaponize the colony because that's what you learned to do. You set traps because that's how you survived. Yes, Gina advanced the files, showing more battles. The corporate wars lasted 15 years. By the time Earth's unified government finally ended them, I'd commanded operations in a dozen systems. I'd learned to win battles that couldn't be won. I'd learned that the side with the most ships doesn't always win. The side that adapts fastest does. She brought up casualty statistics. The numbers were staggering. Millions dead across multiple star systems. Habitats destroyed. Resources depleted. It was warfare without the civilized rules that governed coalition conflicts. "This is barbaric," one of the alien officers muttered. Yes, Gina didn't deny it. It was barbaric. It was cruel. It was survival. And it taught my generation of human soldiers lessons that you can't learn in peacetime. We learned that every piece of equipment is a potential weapon. We learned that victory goes to the side that's willing to take risks. We learned that when surrender means death, you find ways to win that your enemy never expects. She closed the files and looked at each officer in turn. You asked how a human with only 10 years of service knows these things. The answer is that I have 25 years of service. 10 with the Coalition and 15 in Hell. I've fought in battles where losing meant everyone I loved would die. I've made choices that haunt my dreams. And I learned to win anyway. The room was silent for a long moment. Then General Vraxis stood. He moved to stand directly in front of Gina, towering over her small human frame. For a moment, she thought he might attack. Instead, he slowly lowered his head in a gesture of respect. "I was wrong about humans," he said. "I thought your species was soft because you're small. I thought you were weak because you've only been in space for 2 centuries. I didn't understand that you were forged in fires we can't imagine." Commander Thalos approached as well. The Coalition has been at war with the Varuk for a year. In that time, we've followed standard military doctrine. We've fought honorably. And we've lost 12 systems. Perhaps we need someone who doesn't fight honorably. Someone who fights to win. "I'm not dishonest," Gina said carefully. "I don't betray trusts or attack without warning. But I don't fight fair either. Fair fights are for sports. War is about survival." "Agreed." Vraxis returned to his chair. "What do we need to know about the next attack?" Gina pulled up the tactical display. "The Varuk have analyzed our first battle by now. They know about the explosive traps, the hidden positions, the weaponized equipment. They'll adapt. They'll send scouts ahead. They'll bombard from orbit before landing. They'll come at us differently. So what do? We adapt faster." Gina began marking new positions on the map. "They think they understand our tactics now. So we change them completely. No more traps at the facilities. No more ambushes from hidden positions. This time, we meet them head on." The alien officers looked confused. "But that plays to their strengths," Commander Thalos protested. "Exactly. They'll think we've run out of tricks. They'll think we're desperate and falling back on standard tactics." Gina smiled. "And while they're focused on our forces in front of them, we'll hit them from directions they don't even know exist." She spent the next hour explaining her plan. It was complex, risky, and required perfect timing. The alien officers asked questions, offered suggestions, and gradually became part of a planning process. No more doubt. No more skepticism. Just professional soldiers working together. As the meeting ended, Minho pulled Gina aside. "Ma'am, are you okay?" Talking about Enceladus can't be easy. Gina was quiet for a moment. No, it's not. But they needed to know. They needed to understand why humans fight the way we do. Do you think they respect us now? I think they're starting to. Gina looked at the tactical display, at the positions of her forces, and the approaching Varric fleet. But respect doesn't win battles, Lieutenant. Skill does. And we're about to find out if 15 years of hell taught me enough to beat an empire. The second Varric attack came exactly 13 hours after the first. This time they didn't come with landing craft and ground forces. They came with death from above. Warning alarms screamed through the command center as massive. Enemy ships materialized at the edge of weapons range. These weren't the crude warships from the first wave. These were bombardment platforms, purpose-built vessels designed to crack planetary shields and turn surface installations into glass. Contact! Minho's hands flew across his console. 8 heavy bombardment ships taking position. They're staying at maximum range. Gina studied the tactical display with growing concern. The Varric had learned their lesson. They weren't going to get close where she could spring traps. They were going to sit back and pound the colony into rubble from a distance. Shields up. All defensive batteries target the lead ship. She opened a channel to all forces. This is what we expected. Everyone stick to the plan. Commander Thalos materialized beside her, his crystalline form flickering with worry. Captain, those bombardment platforms outrange our weapons by 300 kilometers. We can't touch them. I know. Gina watched as the enemy ships began their attack. Brilliant lances of energy struck the colony's shields. The protective barrier flared with each impact, absorbing the damage but weakening with every hit. General Vraxis's voice came over the comm. Captain, shield strength at 82% and falling. At this rate, we have 30 minutes before they fail. Understood. Begin Phase 2. Gina pulled up a countdown timer. We need to hold for 27 minutes. Can you do that, General? We will do our best. Vraxis sounded grim. But these aren't odds even you can beat with clever tactics, Captain. They're simply pounding us into submission. He was right, and Gina knew it. This was exactly the kind of fight she'd hoped to avoid. A straight battle of firepower and endurance. The Varric had more of both. The bombardment continued without pause. The command center shook with each impact. Dust fell from the ceiling. Emergency lights flickered. Through the view screens, Gina watched the shields glow brighter and brighter as they struggled to dissipate the incoming energy. Shields at 60%. Minho's voice was tight with stress. Captain, we're not going to make it. Around the command center, officers exchanged worried glances. Some of the alien species had excellent hearing. They could probably detect the stress in everyone's voices, smell the fear in the air. Captain Hahn, I recommend we begin evacuation procedures. Commander Thalos gestured to the civilian areas of the colony. We can save the population even if we lose the facilities. No, Gina's voice was firm. We hold. But Captain, I said we hold. Gina slammed her hand on the console. The room fell silent. If we evacuate now, we hand the Varric this system. They'll use it as a staging ground to attack 3 more colonies. Millions of lives are at stake. We hold this line or die trying. General Vraxis appeared on the main screen. I support the captain's decision. We are warriors. We do not run. Shields at 40%, Minho reported. 15 minutes to failure? Gina pulled up a schematic of the colony's fusion reactors. Minho, I need you to route all non-essential power to the shield generators. Life support, artificial gravity, everything. Route it all. Ma'am, that will leave most of the colony in darkness and 0 gravity. Do it. As Minho worked, Gina opened a private channel to Commander Thalos. "Commander, I need your help with something. Something dangerous." The crystalline being leaned closer. "I'm listening." Gina showed him her plan. His form flickered through several colors, which she'd learned indicated surprise and concern. "Captain, this could destroy the entire colony. If the calculations are wrong by even a fraction, then we all die. But if we do nothing, we die anyway." Gina met his alien eyes. "I learned in the corporate wars that sometimes the only way to win is to risk everything. Are you with me?" Commander Thalos was silent for a moment. Then his form solidified into a determined blue. "I'm with you. What do you need me to do?" They worked together, hunched over a secondary console away from the others. Gina's fingers flew across the controls, bringing up reactor specifications and running calculations. She was planning to turn the colony's 3 fusion reactors into a single massive electromagnetic pulse generator. The theory was simple. The execution was nightmarishly complex. She'd need to overload all 3 reactors simultaneously, creating a cascade reaction that would generate an EMP powerful enough to reach the bombardment platforms and fry their systems. But the timing had to be perfect. Too soon, and the pulse would be too weak. Too late, and the shields would fail first. Shields at 20%. Minho's voice was almost a shout now. "Captain, whatever you're doing, do it fast." Almost there. Gina double-checked her calculations. She'd run this scenario 100 times in her head during the break between battles. She knew it would work. It had to work. 10%. Shield failure in 90 seconds. "Commander Thalos, start the reactor overload sequence." Gina opened channels to all forces. "All personnel, brace for electromagnetic pulse. Shut down all non-essential systems. This is going to get rough." Minho spun around. "Ma'am, what are you doing?" "Winning." Gina watched 3 progress bars on her screen, showing the reactor overload status. "Or killing us all." Honestly, it could go either way. General Vraxis's face appeared on the screen. "Captain, sensors show dangerous energy buildup in your reactor complex." "What is happening?" "Trust me, General." Gina's finger hovered over the final execution command. The reactors were approaching critical overload. Just a few more seconds. The timing had to be perfect. Shields failing. Minho grabbed his console as the command center shook violently. "We're about to take direct hits. Now." Gina pressed the command. The world exploded in light. The 3 fusion reactors overloaded simultaneously, but instead of exploding, their energy was channeled through hastily rigged conduits. The electromagnetic pulse erupted outward like an invisible wave of destruction. Through the view screens, Gina watched as the pulse reached the Varak bombardment platforms. Their shields flickered and died. Their weapons went dark. Their engines sputtered and failed. The massive ships went dead in space, reduced to floating hunks of inert metal. It worked. Minho's voice was filled with disbelief. "Captain, it actually worked." "I'm as surprised as you are, Lieutenant." Gina allowed herself a moment of relief before snapping back into command mode. "All ships attack formation. Hit those platforms before they can restore power. Ground forces, prepare for the landing assault. They'll send troops now that the bombardment failed." Her forces surged forward. Coalition ships that had been hiding behind the moon came screaming out, weapons blazing. Without shields or power, the Varak bombardment platforms were helpless. One by one, they were destroyed or disabled, but Gina's victory came at a cost. The electromagnetic pulse had fried half her own systems too. Backup generators kicked in throughout the colony, but it would take hours to restore full functionality. Her shields were down. Her long-range sensors were blind. She'd sacrificed her defenses to eliminate the threat, and now more Varrock ships were arriving. Landing craft and assault ships, ready to take advantage of her weakened state. Here they come. Gina pulled up what little sensor data remained. This is going to be close combat now. No shields, no fancy tricks. Just us against them. General Vraxis smiled on the screen, showing his sharp teeth. Finally, a battle I understand. My forces are ready, Captain. The Varrock landing craft descended through the smoke and debris. This time there would be no traps, no ambushes, no clever tactics. This time it would be soldiers against soldiers, fighting building to building through the damaged colony. Gina strapped on her combat armor and grabbed a rifle. Minho stared at her. "Ma'am, you're not going out there." "Yes, I am." Gina checked her weapon. In the corporate wars, leaders fought alongside their troops. "I'm not going to hide in a bunker while my people die." "Are you coming, Lieutenant?" Minho grabbed his own gear. "Always, ma'am." They left the command center together, heading toward the surface. Behind them, Commander Thalos took over tactical coordination. Above them, the battle raged on. Ahead of them, Varrock soldiers were landing. Gina had 28 more hours to hold. 28 hours until reinforcements arrived. She'd destroyed the bombardment fleet, but at the cost of her own defenses. Now it came down to will. Who wanted victory more? Who was willing to sacrifice more? She thought about Enceladus Station. About 6 months of hell defending civilians against impossible odds. About learning to fight when there was no hope, no help coming, no reason to believe tomorrow would be better than today. The Varrock thought they could break her forces through sustained assault. They didn't understand that humans had survived worse. They didn't know about the corporate wars. They didn't know what happened. When you pushed humanity to the breaking point, they were about to learn. The battle for Kepler 442 lasted another 26 hours of brutal combat. Gina fought alongside her troops through corridors filled with smoke and debris. She watched soldiers from a dozen different species work together, defending positions until they were overrun, then falling back to fight again. The Varrock kept coming in waves, trying to overwhelm through sheer numbers. But something strange happened as the hours passed. The alien soldiers stopped seeing Gina as just their commander. They saw her in the trenches beside them, rifle in hand, making the same impossible choices she asked them to make. When she ordered a retreat, she was the last one out. When she called for an advance, she was the first one forward. General Vraxis found her during a brief lull, both of them taking cover behind rubble that had once been a habitat dome. His armor was scorched and dented. "You humans are insane. You know that?" Gina reloaded her rifle. "We get that a lot." "No, I mean it." Vraxis gestured at the battlefield around them. Any sane commander would have surrendered hours ago. The situation is hopeless. We're outnumbered. Our defenses are gone. Logic says we should save who we can and retreat. Logic doesn't win wars, General. Will does. Gina checked her ammunition count. The Varrock think they've won because they have more soldiers. But they don't understand what it means to fight humans. We don't know how to quit. Commander Thellus's voice crackled over the comm. "Captain, reinforcements have arrived. Coalition fleet jumping in now." Through the smoke-filled sky, Gina saw ships materialize. Dozens of them, carrying the Coalition's response force. They'd held long enough. They'd actually done it. The Varrock forces saw the new arrivals and began to retreat. Their landing craft lifted off, abandoning soldiers who couldn't reach extraction points in time. Within hours, the enemy was gone, leaving behind only wreckage and casualties. Ina stood in what remained of the command center, exhausted beyond words. Her uniform was torn and blood-stained. Her face was covered in grime. But they'd held. Against impossible odds, they'd held the line. The reinforcement fleet's admiral contacted her within minutes of securing orbit. He was a being from a species she didn't recognize, covered in golden scales. Captain Han, your defense of this colony will be studied for generations. Preliminary reports indicate you held against forces that should have crushed you within hours. We all fought, Admiral. Every species, every soldier. Gina looked around at her remaining forces. So many faces were missing. So many hadn't survived. What are your orders? Coalition Command wants you back at Apex Prime immediately. They have questions about your tactics. Over the next week, Gina found herself in meeting after meeting with Coalition leadership. They wanted to understand everything. How she'd weaponized the colony's infrastructure. How she'd destroyed the bombardment fleet. How she'd motivated so many different species to fight beyond normal limits. Battle recordings from Kepler 442 spread across the Coalition networks. Military academies requested copies for analysis. Officers from across the galaxy wanted to study her methods. The defense that shouldn't have worked became legendary. A month after the battle, Gina was promoted to fleet commander. At the ceremony on Apex Prime, the same council that had doubted her now presented her with the Galactic Star of Valor, the Coalition's highest military honor. General Vraxis stood to speak. I have fought for 400 years across 1,000 battlefields. I have served with the greatest warriors of dozens of species. But I have never witnessed anything like Captain Han's defense of Kepler 442. She didn't win through superior firepower or overwhelming numbers. She won through innovation, adaptation, and sheer refusal to accept defeat. Commander Thalos added his own words. Humanity is new to the Coalition. We viewed them as inexperienced, fragile, unsuited for leadership. Captain Han has shown us that experience comes in many forms. The humans learned warfare in ways we cannot imagine, under conditions we would consider impossible. They have much to teach us. When it was Gina's turn to speak, she stood before the assembled council and chose her words carefully. I accept this honor on behalf of all the humans who fought beside me and all the alien species who trusted me to lead them. You asked how we won at Kepler 442. The answer is simple. We won because we had no other choice. She paused, looking at each council member. Humanity learned something during our darkest years. We learned that physical strength doesn't determine victory. Technology doesn't determine victory. What determines victory is the refusal to surrender, even when surrender is the logical choice. We learned to win when winning was impossible, to adapt when our backs were against the wall, to find solutions where none existed. The Varric Empire is strong. They have conquered 12 systems through overwhelming force. But they've never faced an enemy that fights the way humans fight. They've never encountered soldiers trained in the kind of desperate warfare that forged Earth's military. And if the Coalition is willing to learn from us, if you're willing to adopt tactics that don't appear in your traditional doctrines, then we can win this war. The response was overwhelming. Coalition Command restructured their military academies to include instruction on human tactics. Officers were encouraged to think creatively, to use their environment as a weapon, to take calculated risks instead of always playing it safe. Gina was given command of the Coalition's Rapid Response Force, a fleet built specifically to counter Varric advances. General Vraxis requested assignment as her second in command, saying he had more to learn from her than she could ever learn from him. Commander Thalos became her strategic advisor, their combined perspectives creating something neither could achieve alone. Lieutenant Minho, promoted to commander, remained at her side. As they stood together on the bridge of their new flagship, looking at the stars, he asked the question that had been bothering him. Ma'am, do you think it will last? The respect, I mean. Or will they go back to seeing humans as weak once the shock wears off? Gina considered this. Some might. There will always be those who judge by physical appearance rather than capability. But we've proven ourselves now. We've shown the galaxy that humanity belongs here. Not because we're the strongest or the smartest, but because we're survivors. We adapt. We overcome. We win. Over the following months, Gina led campaigns that pushed back the Varric Empire. She used tactics that baffled her enemies and amazed her allies. She turned defeats into victories through innovation and determination. Other human officers rose through coalition ranks, each bringing their own experiences from Earth's brutal history. The Varric Empire began to falter. They'd built their entire strategy around overwhelming force, and they didn't know how to counter an enemy that refused to fight by those rules. Slowly, system by system, the coalition regained lost ground. A year after the defense of Kepler 442, Gina received a message from Earth. A new class of officers had graduated from the Coalition Military Academy. Young humans eager to prove themselves among the stars. The message included a recording of their graduation speech. The instructor, an alien officer who'd fought at Kepler 442, told the new graduates, "You are entering a coalition that respects your species. Not because humans are physically powerful or technologically advanced, but because you have something no other species can teach us. You have the ability to win when winning is impossible, to adapt when others would break, to overcome any obstacle through sheer determination and innovation." Across the galaxy, when soldiers face impossible odds, they now say, "Fight like a human. That is your legacy." That is what your Captain Gina Han gave us all. Gina watched the recording alone in her quarters. She thought about Enceladus Station, about the corporate wars, about all the battles that had taught her how to survive. She'd carried those lessons to the stars, and now they were changing the entire galaxy's understanding of warfare. Commander Minho found her there. "New orders just came in, ma'am. The Varric are massing forces in the Outer Rim. Command wants us to lead the defense." Gina stood, straightening her uniform. "Tell the fleet to prepare for jump." "And Minho?" "Send a message to all ships. Tell them we're not just defending territory. We're showing the galaxy what humanity can do." As her fleet prepared to move out, Gina looked at the stars one last time. Out there, somewhere, the Varric Empire was preparing for battle. They still had more ships, more soldiers, more resources. But they didn't understand what they were facing. They thought humans were weak because they were small. They thought humanity was insignificant because they were new to space. They had made the same mistake every other species had made. They had underestimated what desperation could teach, what survival could forge, what humanity could become when pushed to its limits. The galaxy had learned the truth. Humanity's greatest strength was never physical power or technological superiority. It was the absolute refusal to quit, the determination to win at any cost, the ability to turn every disadvantage into an advantage, every setback into a lesson, every defeat into preparation for the next victory. Gina smiled as her fleet jumped to hyperspace. The doubters had thought she was too weak. Her war record hadn't just shattered their doubts. It had rewritten what the entire galaxy considered possible. And this was only the beginning.